Before and afterwards? Not really. More like a then and now. So we're going to talk about my health history in regards to my weight and how I got here and different things I did through the years and why carnivore works so well. Hey, what's shaking bacon? I hope you're doing well. So in today's video, I'm going to talk a lot about my health history in regards to my weight. So when I was a young kid, up until the age of 10, I didn't have any weight issues. I was an average sized kid. I'll be posting some photos over here just as this goes on so we can have some visual proof that I was the size I was at the age I said I was. By the age of 10, I wasn't a big kid. I was just an average sized kid. And at the age of 10 to 16, I put on a lot of weight. And it wasn't for a lack of activity. I spent a lot of time, don't get me wrong, on hot summer days, I did nothing because we didn't have air conditioning. But I did go for lots of bike rides. I was still active doing things. I was still playing baseball and sports with friends at recess and after school. But I really struggled with my weight in between those ages. By the time I was 16 years old, I had gotten up to at least 350 pounds. The scale stopped at 315. I was just a big overweight kid. I was like a loose fat, it wasn't like a muscular fat or anything. It was just a flabby fat kid. But by the time I was 16, I started exercising a lot. I created a circuit training routine. I started weightlifting. Now I still rode my bike everywhere because unlike most kids that can't wait to get their license by the time they're 16, I was fine not getting my license. I was riding my bike everywhere and I enjoyed it. I rode my bike to my jobs. I just enjoyed riding a bicycle. So I didn't see the need to get a license. So I kept active that way, but I also started weight training. When I weight trained, I accidentally created a circuit training routine. So a circuit training routine is where you go right from one exercise to the next, and then to the next, and to the next, and you keep your heart rate up. And so I was doing bench pressing, and then I'd go and do sit-ups, and then I'd do leg curls, then I'd go and do sit-ups, and then I'd go do leg extensions, and I'd go and do more sit-ups. And the sit-ups were on an incline rack, so they're all at different heights. I got to the point where I was doing about 400 sit-ups a day. And if I missed a day, I had to do a double workout the next day, so I rarely missed a day. There was one time I missed 2 workouts in a row, and my buddy and I were waiting to go hang out because I was like, look, I got to do my workouts. I got through my first 2 workouts back to back, so that was about already an hour right there between those 2 workouts because my workouts only lasted about a half hour. And I proceeded to do my 3rd workout, and I got about 20 minutes into the half-hour workout, and during my sit-ups, and my nose just bled. I must have been at about 1,100 sit-ups by that point. It was in the middle of the summer, and my friend was right there when it happened, and boy, it was like Niagara Falls. It just started bleeding like crazy. I thought, okay, I think I've had enough, and I reached my limit. That's part of being a young man, unfortunately. You just push yourself until you hurt yourself, and fortunately, it was nothing too serious. Now, I kept that up and lost all my weight. I went down to an athletic 204 pounds was the lowest I weighed myself at. So from the time I was 16 to the time I was, almost 17, I just became a thick kid. I sort of went from like a roly-poly big kid, I was already over 6 feet tall, to just a brick. And I didn't realize at the time how I looked, but the closest thing would be I had the look of a power lifter. I was thick and fat, but solid underneath. You could tell I had a lot of muscle to me. I had broad shoulders, thick chest, thick back. So all that activity I was doing came into play. And I didn't realize at the time because I was so big, I started losing weight. I went to the doctor and the doctor was like, yeah, you just have low blood pressure. And he said, you're losing a lot of weight, I see. And I said, yeah. He said, how much? I said, about 10 pounds a month. I was losing 10 pounds a month. I was out exercising a bad diet. And boy, did I have a big appetite. I had the typical appetite any 16-year-old boy had. And I had cereal. I would grab a soup bowl. I mean, a serving bowl that you would serve a family soup in. And I would pour my Cheerios in there or my Fruit Loops or my shredded wheat. And that's how I had my cereal every day. I went through a bag of milk every day. And I went through a whole box of cereal every day. I was a big kid and I was eating a lot. If I had pizza with my family, I usually had half the pizza myself. So the problem with those eating habits was it bit me later on in life. By the time I was 18, I was pretty lean and athletic. I had a lot of loose skin. I had so much loose skin on my arms, it was like chicken skin. I could just grab my arms and go, and stretch it out. I could do that with my stomach. My stomach was hanging over, just the skin was hanging over my pants. I probably got down to about 10% body fat. So I always had to wear shirts where I was tucking my shirts in, or if I wore a sweater, I had a shirt underneath and I was tucking it in because that loose skin would hang over my belt line. So when I was 18, it was really difficult. I had to dress a particular way. And when I was 19, I kind of filled out by about 15 pounds. So I bottomed out at 204, and I stayed there all the time I was 18. But when I turned 19, I went up about 10 pounds, and I stayed at around 215 pounds or so. So I was happy to ride my bicycle everywhere. And my weight gain started when I was 20. I developed allergies, and I also developed hypothyroidism. And I think I was 19 when I developed my allergies, actually. My thyroid went out of whack, and I put on 40 pounds in 3 months. I was exhausted all the time. Every time I take a nap in the middle of the day, on my breaks or at lunch, I would wake up and feel good for an hour, and then I was exhausted, like I pulled an all-nighter. And that weight gain came on really fast, and I wasn't doing anything different than I had been for the last few months. I got diagnosed with hypothyroidism, and I ended up putting on weight. Now, the interesting thing was I started bouncing a lot more regularly by this time. I started when I was 18 because I was a big kid. I was 6'2", 205 pounds. I was built like a man. I could handle myself because by this point I was also doing some martial arts, some Jeet Kune Do, some boxing and wrestling. And so I could handle myself pretty good. So I was bouncing a lot between the ages of, so when I ended up going up to almost 260 pounds, and I didn't mind it. I didn't mind that I put on that weight, believe it or not, because I was bouncing, and the extra weight kind of came in handy, right? So lots of these guys at 20 years old are still fighting to get up to 160 pounds, and I was 260. So it was easy for me to move people around like rag dolls. I was completely satisfied just turning people into little pretzels. So I put on some weight when I was doing that. So in that time, between 20 and 23, I got up to 295 pounds, and I was like, wow, like I put on a lot of weight. I don't want to be this big. And so I started this soup diet I came across, and it was an extremely low carb diet. I was having fruits one day, vegetables another, then fruits and vegetables another day. Once or twice, I think twice a week I could have protein, and only one day a week I could have carbohydrates. So I also got a potato halfway through the week as well. So I was doing that, and it was my first experience with a low carb diet, but it wasn't sustainable. It wasn't enough calories. It just wasn't a great way to go. But I lost 40 pounds pretty easily. I went down to 255 pounds, and I was 23 years old. So I started college when I was 23. So I got to 255 pounds, and I was doing pretty good. I wasn't in great shape, but I was in decent shape. And I had a lot of muscle on me, but I wasn't really weight training at the time. I was doing some jogging. So when I was in college, I was sitting on my butt all day long, and I was still eating a lot of bad food. I had a big appetite, and I was eating a lot of bad food. And it was in college, I also realized I was emotional eating. I noticed after an exam one day, I got into my car after hitting a Tim Hortons on the way back to my car from school. And I remember getting into the car and taking a bite of this triple chocolate brownie. And I took a bite and I sighed. And I remember going, and I realized that's what smokers do when they have a cigarette after a long, stressful event. And they have their cigarette and they just calm down. And I thought, that is not good. That's a sign of emotional eating. Now, I didn't do much about that. I just recognized that that was the first time I noticed it. And when I was in college, I had put on 50 pounds. Near the end of college, I put on another 50 pounds because near the end of college, I had to get a night job. So I was working nights for 6 weeks while I was finishing the end of college. And it's a long story in and of itself. But either way, I was barely doing anything. I was sleeping, working, going to school. Sleeping, working, going to school. Repeat that for 6 weeks. I was getting about 5 hours sleep a night. It's just the reality of the situation I was forced into for situations beyond my control. Anyway, by the time I finished that stint of work, because I needed to keep that job while I was waiting to get my license because I'm a registered massage therapist, I put on almost 100 pounds by the time this happened. So by the time I was 27 and I was a licensed massage therapist, by this point I was usually floating around 350 pounds, 360 pounds, but that was my max, 350 or so, 360. And I would lose 40 pounds and then put on another 40 pounds. A lot of times from the time I was 21 years old to 27, I'd put on and lose the same 40 pounds over and over again because I would go back to some version of that soup diet. And that wasn't a healthy, maintainable diet. It wasn't a good way to eat. It wasn't enough calories, and there was very low protein in that way of eating. And it was also low fat. So after that, I started doing a way of eating called Body for Life. And it was a Bill Phillips program, and it was portioning proteins, carbs, and fats all through the day. It was like a bodybuilder's diet. It was 3 meals and 3 snacks. and it was designed to not raise your blood glucose too much, and only a little bit with each meal and snack, and then do a certain amount of activity through the day. It was a really healthy, balanced plan between exercise and diet. It was 20 minutes of cardio a day, and it was 45 minutes of weights, and those days alternated with one day off through the week. So it was 3 weight routines and 3 cardio routines. But it still wasn't sustainable for me because what I didn't realize at the time was I was dealing with sugar and carbohydrate addiction. So I eventually got to the point in my 30s where I actually went up to over 450 pounds. I was closer to about 465. The scales typically stopped at about 450. I would often go down to about 380 or so if I was getting things under control, and then I would bounce back up to 450, 465. I noticed plateaus all the way up and down with my weight at certain levels. So I would always plateau at around 260, 320. I'm plateaued right now at 320, and I don't mind because I'm feeling so good. I eventually came across this doctor who was doing a zero carbohydrate diet. The problem with that was it was also a zero fat diet, and it was limited in calories. I bet you I was getting the volume of my palm 3 times a day in protein, and he wanted to be chicken or turkey. So I was probably getting like 1,000, 1,200 calories a day. It wasn't much. And I lost a lot of weight. I went from 465 pounds down to 300 pounds in 5 months. And then I stuck with it for another 7 months and lost another 15 pounds. I doubled my protein because it was just not enough. And it was causing some digestive issues as well. That was my first introduction to zero carb eating. I did that consistently for a year, and then I got to the point where I was doing okay. I lost a lot of muscle doing that. I think I created a lot of metabolism damage, and it definitely wasn't sustainable. The problem with this way of eating, if you're not getting enough fat, it's not sustainable. If you're not getting enough protein, it's definitely not sustainable. And I wasn't getting enough of either. Eventually, in 2018, I came across Carnivore like a lot of other people did. Now, I had a rough time sticking with Carnivore for a couple of different reasons. I felt satiated whenever I ate that way. I felt good, but I was also fighting gout. I'd been fighting gout since I was about 27, and I noticed the last few years by this point, every time I started to lose weight, it would trigger a gout attack because my bodies were burning ketones, and that was making the uric acid back up in the body because the ketones are getting prioritized by the kidneys. So the kidneys were flushing those out instead of the uric acid. So you combine that with a history of insulin problems, and I was always getting gout. So I would go off the diet just to get rid of the gout. It worked really well. So I could do a clean eating for a day or two. And this happened, by the way, when I did that low carb diet with the doctor. It was ever since then, I was dealing with gout on almost a daily basis. So this wasn't a carnivore thing that was giving me gout. This was something I was dealing with ever since I had had that rapid weight loss with that doctor when I was in my late 30s. And I lost over 180 pounds. So here I am now. I was doing carnivore from 2018. I got kidney stones, so that slowed me up. I was doing great with carnivore at that point. I was doing it for 3 months, and then I started passing these kidney stones. The doctor said it definitely wasn't the diet. It was more likely the fact that I was just starting to lose weight and everything was kind of getting expelled from my body. And those kidney stones that had been building up for years, that had been backed up there, were finally flushing through. But he said, if this is working for you, keep doing it. And so I had a hard time keeping with a carnivore diet after that until the first week in January of 2021. And it wasn't like a New Year's resolution. It just coincidentally happened that I started being consistent with the carnivore diet. I found a way to manage my gout through taking berberine. It kept my blood sugar in balance. Even though my blood sugar was doing good on a carnivore diet, I was still getting insulin spikes from my blood sugar going up after any meal. And because my insulin was out of whack, it was aggravating my gout. Once I realized that correlation and I could take this product called berberine, my gout attacks went away and I just flew with carnivore. And I've been doing carnivore ever since consistently. It's been over a year and a half now. It's been a year and I'm in the 8th month. I'm doing really well. Overall, in this time frame, I've lost 150 pounds. The last 90 pounds have been since 2021. I've been doing with strict carnivore, and more importantly than pounds, I'm losing inches. And more importantly than that, my health problems are going away. More importantly than that, it's opening my life up to a lot of different activities I couldn't do too well before. So my joints are less stiff. I can do lots of different activities that I could run upstairs. For example, now I'm taking stairs 2 steps at a time. That's my goal right now, 2 steps at a time whenever I do stairs. So when people ask why carnivore, it's because it gets rid of so many of my health problems that it allows the rest of my life to be opened up. It's a restrictive diet, but it opens my life up in a variety of different ways for activities and just lifestyle. So it's worth doing that. It helps me with my weight. That's also the side effect of just feeling better. But how does this apply to you? Well, carnivore is a sustainable diet because you can stay satiated the whole time you do this way of eating. I tend to stick more to red meats because I feel the most satiated with it. I've been working harder to stay to an 80-20 ratio with fat to protein. And I feel really good doing that. And everything's going really well. Most of my health problems have cleared up. You can look at some of my older videos. There's a slew of health problems I had. I just want to stress again, the difference between all those other ways of eating that I did, those were diets and they were calorically restricted diets. Doing carnivore, I was having way more calorically than I was supposed to have. I was having 5,000-6,000 calories a day, some days up to 7,000 or 8,000. It was rare, but sometimes that happened. And I had like 7 or 8 pounds of food that day. And it's really neat because I was losing weight doing that. So how is it that I could lose weight even though I was having more calories? Some people are all about calories. Some people are all about hormones. The reality is it sort of comes down to both, in my opinion. And once my hormones were getting balanced, it was easy to lose weight, even though I had way more calories than I was supposed to have in a day. Your takeaway with this is be consistent with carnivore. Be strict and be consistent with carnivore. The more strict you are, the more consistent you can be. And that may help you with weight loss. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Take care, and I'll see you next time.